Nice of you to drop in.
Hello people, I am the Comic Book Gamer, and today I'm going to be talking about some times that Superman has lost his powers, because the Action Comics 8-page preview for issue 41, which takes place after Convergence, was just released, and we see that Superman is losing his powers. So I thought it'd be fun to talk about the times that he has lost his powers. Not every single time, because there's been a lot of times that he's lost his powers, but here are just some of my favorite instances. Starting off with Superman Batman Annual number 2. Now in this issue, Superman and Batman are just stopping this bad guy like they do, and he ends up sending a dying meteorite towards Superman. Superman takes the meteorite, flies it back into space, and then through all this he just loses his powers. And so he's going through a very tough time, because this is early on in Superman's career. This is when Dick Grayson is still Robin. He's still like 12 years old, and yeah, this is a really early on stage in Superman's life, so we're assuming this is like the first time he's actually lost his powers. And so through this he's struggling, and Batman offers to actually help him, and it's really cool seeing Superman train with Batman. And also, some of my favorite dialogue ever is in this book, given by Dick Grayson. When Batman looks at Dick Grayson, he's like, honestly, tell me, what do you think of Superman? And he's like, well, he's awesome. And then Batman's like, yeah, with the super strength, fight, and vulnerability. And Dick Grayson says, no, not just that. There are other guys that do that stuff. It's the rest of it. Truth, justice, the American way. They're not just words to him. He believes. No matter how bad things get, it's cool to know someone's out there fighting for us, who still believes in hope. Don't get me wrong, Gotham needs Batman and Robin, but the world needs Superman. And I just thought that was awesome. It's some of my favorite dialogue, and it's just a really cool thing that shows how Superman is. No matter if he has powers or not, he's still going to fight. And through this, we see that Batman's like, yeah, he's right. You know, Gotham needs Batman and Robin, but the whole world needs Superman. So he goes and he stops up. Well, Bruce Wayne goes and he dresses up like Superman, gets in like this armored suit, and he stops Metallo, so that way Metropolis can still see that Superman is around, because Superman, after all, is a symbol. But after that, that's when he goes and he trains with Bruce, and they train for an entire month. And through this, Superman actually beats up the Joker. He almost kills him. If it weren't for Batman being there, he said himself, he would have killed the Joker, because what happened was Superman debuted as Supernova. That was his new, alias, the new hero without powers. So he goes down to this alley to save this woman who's being mugged. He beats the crap out of the guy that was mugging her, and then the chick that was being mugged turns out to be the Joker. And the Joker just like, does the joy buzzer to him and like really messes him up, and then Superman sets his face on fire. And then after that, he's not too happy with Batman, because this was after only a month of training, and Batman sends him out after the Joker. Yeah, Superman wasn't too happy about that. And after that, they have their big talk to where Superman's like, yeah, if you wouldn't have been there, I would have killed him. Why did you send me out after the Joker after only a month of training? Because, Batman knew full well that that was the Joker and not just some random lady being mugged. And so they sort of have a big thing against each other. They're at odds, and Superman's just like, I don't know if I can do this. And then Dick Grayson says, I don't know about Supernova, but Superman doesn't quit. And again, I like Dick Grayson's my favorite part of this whole issue. He's just great, because to me, Dick Grayson represents how I would be in this book. Like, it's Superman. Like, the first time he meets Superman, he just freaks out, and he's like, you're Superman. He's like, just call me Clark. And he's like, yes, sir, Mr. Clark, man. And then Alfred takes him away. He's like, maybe we should hit you with some rhino tranquilizer. And he's like, yeah, Alfred, I think that would work. And just Dick Grayson's amazing in this storyline, well, in this issue. But anyways, during this whole month of training, Batman has been trying to catch the guy who went and took Superman's powers. And because this guy has also been messing with like billionaires, like people are like who have so much money they don't know what to do with it and like have no purpose in life. He's been like, I can give you a purpose. He ends up taking their money and really messing with them. So Bruce Wayne goes out and tries to capture this guy. He goes undercover, but this guy ends up like giving Bruce a huge hallucination, and he goes into a stroke. And Dick Grayson's freaking out because Bruce is having a stroke. And Superman shows up again with no powers. He's not Supernova anymore, though. He's wearing a Superman costume without powers, and he's getting beat up at first, and then he just does one big punch to the guy and knocks him out, and he's able to save Batman. So yeah, Superman's able to save Batman and defeat the villain, and it's just a pretty good issue. And again, that's just one of my favorite parts of Superman without powers. It was really cool seeing Superman without powers, and again, this was early on in Superman's career, so this was probably the first time that he actually lost his powers. It was just really cool to see. And the next story arc I'm going to be talking about takes place within Superman Batman issues 53 through 56. Now, what happened in this story arc was Silver Banshee is fighting Superman and Batman, just their normal thing. But Silver Banshee has this weird medallion amulet necklace thing that causes Superman's powers to go to Batman. And when Batman first gets him, he's freaking out, sort of like Man of Steel when Zod, got the helmet taken off, and he was just like, "What's going on? I can hear everything in the world." That's what happens to Batman. Batman's hearing everything in Gotham at once, and he's just like, "What is going on?" And so Superman is able to train him on how to use his powers, and through this, Batman goes crazy. Batman has all the power, and he just goes complete nuts. And so what happens is he's like, I can stop all the crime in the entire world at once. I just need to beat the sun. So what he does is he goes all across the world and starts fighting crime. Wherever it's nighttime, he's there. And so, like, say it's nighttime in America, but it's daytime in Korea. Well, he's fighting in America, but then it becomes nighttime in Korea and it's daytime in America. He goes over to Korea and starts fighting crime there. That sort of thing. That's what he does. And through this, he almost kills Bane. He almost kills Catwoman because, like, he punches straight through Bane's stomach. Just, yeah, not very good. He almost kills Catwoman, like, beats the crap out of her. And so, needless to say, people aren't exactly happy with what Batman's doing. And so, Nightwing shows up and starts fighting him and starts beating Batman up pretty good. And Batman's just like, okay, this isn't going so well. And he just beats the crap out of Nightwing, almost kills him. And he's like, why did you do this? Why did you come alone? I have the power of Superman. It's like, well, you've been avoiding the sun this whole time. And Superman's powers kind of rely on the sun. So I thought I could take you. And he almost did. He did really well for a superpowered Batman. For fighting a superpowered Batman. And I don't get why Dick Grayson decided to say, hey, Batman, remember how your powers work on the sun? That was pretty stupid. But anyways, we see what Superman is doing. He's enjoying time with Lois because, he's human now. He doesn't have to go around and save the world. And so he's going around the town with Lois, and he sees this lady's getting mugged. And Superman jumps in front of the gun and gets shot. And Lois is just standing in the alley with Clark in her arms. It's very reminiscent of, Batman with his two dead parents. And so the Justice League comes, and they're able to, like, help Superman because, they got the Justice League Watchtower, which has got all that advanced technology and all that. And so Superman ends up being fine. But Batman, on the other hand, goes and he recharges in the sun. It's like, yeah, I gotta get back to full power. Justice League confronts him and is like, what you've been doing is bad. Stop doing it. And he's like, you know what? I could save everyone in the entire world. I can finally do it. Like, when he first gets the powers, there's even this thing where he's flying in space and he's crying. And he's like, I can finally do it, Mom and Dad. I can save everyone. It's like, yeah, Batman's got off the deep end. And so he starts fighting the Justice League here. And he's beating the crap out of the Justice League. The Justice League is holding back. He says so in his head because, they are fighting a friend. But still, being able to fight people like Supergirl, Wonder Woman, Hal Jordan, Jon Stewart, and there are a couple others as well. That's just to name a few, like the powerful ones. He is doing really well because he's just beating the crap out of all of them, even if they are all holding back. And so then he hears something. He's like, what's that? And he flies off, and he's like, wait, Mom, Dad. He sees his parents under the streetlight. Then Superman jumps up, and he's like, gotcha. And Zatanna comes out of nowhere and just transfers their powers because Superman was able to outsmart Batman and use Zatanna to transfer their powers because they went and saw Silver Banshee, and she turned into this old woman now. So they're like, okay, we need to figure out how to transfer our powers back because Batman's gone crazy and the Justice League can't stop him. And so he was able to work out a plan, and he used Zatanna to transfer their powers. And so in the end, Superman was able to outsmart Batman and get his powers back. One of the things I really liked about the story arc was it answered the question of why is Superman such a jerk and why is he not constantly saving people? Why does he have a social life? He doesn't need that. He should be constantly saving people. You see why. Batman went completely crazy trying to save everyone because he thought he could. He realized he had all the power to, but it just drives you crazy, and it's way worse than someone who saves a lot of people but also has a double life, to where Batman did not have a double life and just stayed Batman the whole time, went completely crazy. So I really like seeing that because you see people who are just like, well, Superman's a jerk because he should be constantly saving people. Well, you see what happens if Superman were to try that. Batman just went crazy, and having Superman's power was too much for him. And even at the end of the story arc, Superman's like, hey, it was because of the magic Silver Banshee thing drove you crazy. It wasn't you. And Batman's like, call it whatever you want. That's just an excuse. I should have controlled it better. I went crazy. But yeah, it was a really good story arc, and it's really interesting to see what would happen if Batman had Superman's powers. So yeah, those were the main two story arcs I wanted to talk about, but I will talk about two others very briefly. The first one being Superman and the Legion of Superheroes. What happens in this story arc is Superman gets transported to the 31st century, because that's where the Legion of Superheroes are from, and he's there to help them, but it turns out the Earth is covered in a red sun, which he finds out by getting shot through the hand, because the Legions are kind of jerks that didn't tell him that it was covered in red sun. Well, that the sun was now red on Earth. They were jerks, because Superman's like, I'm Superman, and he goes to stop a bullet and just gets shot straight through his hand. Good thing he didn't puff out his chest, otherwise it wouldn't have ended well. But throughout the story arc, he has the Legion ring, which just grants him flight, no like anything else that's special, no super strength or nothing like that. So he's able to fight people throughout the story arc, like these evil police officers, and then at the end he fights this guy called Earthman. Earthman, it has the ability to, he's like Rogue. He has the ability to suck everyone's powers by just like being around them, really. Like he just does this special move and he's able to suck their powers. He doesn't have to touch them or anything, and he can maintain them for 12 hours and he has to recharge. And so what happens is Superman's fighting him, and he has all these different powers like telepathy, super strength, invulnerability, super speed, all these tons of powers, and Superman's actually holding his own for a good bit, and then the guy starts beating up Superman, but then Superman recovers his powers and just like knocks him out in one punch. But anyways, it was still impressive to see Superman fight a guy with all these different powers and be able to hold his own for as long as he did. It was just really impressive. And the last story arc I'm going to be talking about is something that I have talked about before, which is Superman Up, Up, and Away. And at the very end of that story arc, well, throughout it, he like doesn't have powers, but at the very end, he doesn't have powers, and he fights Lex Luthor with this boxing match, and he's able to beat him for a couple reasons. First off, he even says it, rage makes Lex Luthor not a good fighter, because Lex is just like so mad at Superman, he's just blindly throwing swings. And another reason is Superman has been trained by a lot of different people, like we learned earlier. He was trained by Batman, he's been trained by Wonder Woman, he's been trained by Mongol, he's been trained by Zod, he's been trained by Ted Grant, aka Wildcat, in boxing. So he knows a thing or two about fighting, and it was just a really cool fight. And again, it has some of my favorite dialogue, to where Superman just explains to Lex that as long as there are people around like Lex, he will be there to stop them with powers or without. And yeah, those are some of my favorite story arcs without, where Superman doesn't have powers and he does some cool stuff. Also, I'll have a link in the description to check out the 8-page preview if you want to read it for Action Comics. It's free. It's just an 8-page preview if you want to read it, if you haven't already. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like.